Respiration in plants and animals. Learning objectives. Respiration. Types of respiration. Combustion and respiration. Respiration in animals. Respiration in plants. All living organisms require energy to do physical as well as biological activities. Our body organs cannot work without energy. How do you get energy to perform different activities? You have already studied in the previous class that we eat different types of foods. These foods are digested foods or simple food absorbed and transported to all parts of our body by blood. The digested food is broken at the cell and liberates energy. This energy is stored in ATP, adenosine triphosphate, molecules in the cells. Our body can use this stored energy whenever it wants to do so. So you can simply say that the process of releasing energy from food is called respiration. Here, you will learn that how this respiration process happens in animals as well as in plants. Respiration. Most living things need oxygen, air, to obtain energy from food. This oxygen breaks the food molecules, glucose, present in the cells slowly and liberates energy. It is stored in our cells in form of ATP. So we can say that respiration is a biochemical process in which simple carbohydrate food, glucose, is broken by oxygen, releasing energy along with waste product, water and carbon dioxide. Food, glucose, plus oxygen, carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Types of respiration. Normally, free oxygen is used in respiration, but sometimes certain parts of plants, fruits and seeds, or some bacteria respire even in absence of oxygen. The respiration which takes place in presence of oxygen is called aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, glucose food is completely broken down into carbon dioxide and water. It also produces considerable amount of energy. When respiration takes place without oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. In this process very less energy is produced. It also produces ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide in plants and lactic acid in animals. Difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. 1. It occurs in presence of oxygen. It occurs in absence of oxygen. 2. Food molecule, glucose, is completely broken down into carbon dioxide and water. Food molecule, glucose, is partially broken down into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide in plants, lactic acid in animal. 3. Large amount of energy is released. Very less amount of energy is released. Combustion and respiration. Sometimes, respiration is compared with burning, such as burning of coal, wood and petroleum. The energy is produced in the form of heat and light. Carbon dioxide is also produced. But the two processes are differ in many ways. The difference between two are given in the table. Respiration. Combustion. 1. It is a slow process which occurs in a series of chemical steps. It is a very fast process, which occurs in a single step. 2. It occurs at room temperature. It occurs generally at high temperature. 3. Energy is produced in form of chemical molecules. Energy is produced in form of heat and light. 4. It is carried out by enzymes. It is carried out by heat. 5. It is a cellular process. It is a non-cellular process. Respiration in animals. Different organisms use different organs to exchange gases with their surrounding. The organisms take in oxygen from air or water and expel carbon dioxide and water into the air or water. The process which involves only exchange of gases is called breathing or external respiration. The oxygen taken in by the organism reaches the cells where it is used to break down the food, glucose, along with enzymes. The process of breaking of food and releasing of energy is called internal respiration or cellular respiration. Differences between breathing and cellular respiration. Breathing. Cellular respiration. 1. It is a physical process in which only exchange of gases, O2 and CO2, takes place. It is a biochemical process in which food molecules are oxidized to carbon dioxide and water. 2. It occurs at room temperature. It occurs inside the cells. 3. Enzymes are not involved. Enzymes are required to break the food substances. 4. Energy is not released. Energy is released. In unicellular organisms like amoeba and paramecium, exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, takes place through the cell membrane. In hydra, exchange of gases happens through moist surface. Even leeches and earthworms do not have special organs for breathing. They breathe through moist skin. In insects, there is a small hole called spiracle on their side. Air enters through this hole and reaches all parts of body through a network of thick tube called trachea. Fish, frog, earthworm, grasshopper, birds. Aquatic animals, fish and tadpoles have gill system. Through these gills, aquatic animals take dissolved oxygen from water. Frogs, when in water, breathe through moist skin. When frogs on land, breathe through their lungs. Birds and mammals including humans have highly developed lung system where gaseous exchange takes place. Activity 7.1. To show that carbon dioxide is given out during breathing. Take 100 milliliters of lime water in a beaker. Breathe out into the beaker for few minutes. You will find that lime water turns milky. Respiration system in human beings. The respiration system of human beings consists of the following parts. See figure. 1. Nasal cavity. 2. Larynx. 3. Trachea. 4. Bronchi. 5. Lungs. Human respiratory system. Nasal cavity. Nostril oral cavity. Larynx. Right main bronchus. Right lung. Pharynx. Trachea. Left main bronchus. Left lung. Diaphragm. 1. Nasal cavity. We generally take air through our nostrils and sometimes through our mouths. The nasal cavity traps germs and particles present in air. It also warms and cools the air. 2. Larynx. Air passes through nasal cavity, comes into the rectangular chamber called larynx or voice box. It is responsible for speech. 3. Trachea. The trachea or windpipe is a delicate muscular tube supported by cartilaginous rings. It is divided into two branches. 4. Bronchi. Each bronchi is divided into smaller tubes known as bronchioles and finally enter tiny sacs-like structures called alveoli. 5. Lungs. There is one pair of lungs. Each lung has millions of alveoli which get filled with air when we inhale. Mechanism of respiration. Breathing or respiration is a physical process that involves inhaling air into the lungs and CO2 out of the body. As you know that respiration process is completed in two stages, external respiration or breathing and internal respiration or cellular respiration. Breathing process is completed by our lungs. Lungs are situated in the chest cavity. A large flat muscle called diaphragm forms the floor of chest cavity. With the help of diaphragm, air reaches and comes out from lungs. The movement of air from atmosphere to lung is called inhalation. When air comes out from lungs to atmosphere, it is called exhalation. Hence, Breathing process is completed by the two processes, inhalation and exhalation. In cellular respiration it is also completed in two stages, glycolysis and Krebs cycle. Carbohydrate, glucose, glycolysis, pyruvic acid. Aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. CO2 plus H2O plus large energy. CO2 plus lactic acid plus less energy. Cellular respiration. When sugar or glucose is broken down into pyruvic acid, it is called glycolysis. If oxygen is present, then pyruvic acid is broken into carbon dioxide and water along with large quantity of energy. This process is called aerobic respiration. If oxygen is absent, the pyruvic acid is broken into carbon dioxide and lactic acid along with less quantity of energy. Sneezing. The sudden expulsion of air from the nose, without our control over it, due to the irritation of nasal passage, is called sneezing. We often sneeze when we inhale air containing dust, smoke or pollen, etc. This happens as follows. The air around us sometimes contains various types of small, unwanted particles such as dust, smoke, pollens, etc. Now, there are some very fine hair inside our nose in the nasal passage, or nasal cavity. When we inhale air, the unwanted particles present in air usually get trapped in the hair present in our nasal passage. Sometimes, however, the particles of dust, smoke and pollens, etc., present in inhaled air get past the hair in the nasal passage and irritate the lining of nasal passage, as a result of which we sneeze. Sneezing expels all the unwanted particles from the inhaled air so that a dust-free, clean air enters into our lungs. Note that whenever we sneeze, we should cover our nose properly with a handkerchief so that the unwanted particles which we expel during sneezing are not inhaled by other persons nearby us. Activity 7.2. To demonstrate the breathing process in human. Take 2 glass bell jars. Fix Y glass tube with balloon in the jar as shown in the figure. Tie a thin rubber shut tightly around the open rim of the bell jar. This system is comparable to the lung system of human being. The bell jar is like diaphragm and balloon is like lungs. Now pull the rubber sheet down. When space of jar increases, the balloons get flattened as in figure. When rubber sheet is released, the balloons collapse. In our lungs, inhalation and exhalation of air happen like this. Expiration. Inspiration. Y tube trachea and bronchi. Bell jar chest cavity. Balloon lung. Volume increases, pressure increases. Volume increases, pressure decreases, sheath diaphragm. Role of blood in respiration. Blood contains 3 different types of cells. Red blood cells, RBC, are one of them. Our blood is red because it contains a pigment called hemoglobin. This hemoglobin carries oxygen from lungs to all part of our body cell, which helps to break food particles into glucose. Respiration in plants. Plants are living organisms. Like animals, plants also require energy. They get energy by the process of respiration. Plants also use oxygen of air for respiration and release carbon dioxide. But plants do not have any specific organ like animals. The exchange of gases takes place by the process of diffusion. Diffusion of gases occurs through all parts of plant independently like stem, root and leaf. The small minute openings called stomata on the surface of leaves help in exchange of gases. The lentils, on opening in stem, help in exchange of gases. The root hair, apical part of roots, help in exchange of gases. Respiration in plants. Photosynthesis. Light energy. Respiration. Heat energy. Oxygen. Carbon dioxide. Glucose. Minerals. Water. Activity 7.3. to show that carbon dioxide is produced during respiration. Keep some germinating seed in a flat-bottom flask. Cover its mouth with a rubber cork having 2 holes. Insert a funnel in one hole and in another hole insert a bent glass tube. Place another end of bent tube inside the glass test tube containing water. Leave the setup for few hours. Note down your observation. Now replace test tube containing water with another test tube containing lime water. Again leave this setup for few hours. Note down your observation. You will find that lime water turns milky. It proves that during the germinating respiration process, carbon dioxide is released. Mechanism of respiration in plants. Like animals, plants' respiration is also completed in 2 phases. I. Exchanges of gases through the individual part of plants. 2. Cellular respiration. It is also like animal by 2 substages, glycolysis and aerobic or anaerobic respiration. In anaerobic respiration, carbon dioxide and ethanol are produced along with small quantity of energy. Respiration in leaves. The leaves of plants have tiny pores on their surface which are called stomata. Major quantity of gaseous exchange takes place in the leaves through stomata for the purpose of photosynthesis. It is a space between 2 kidney-shaped guard cells. It controls the opening and closing of stomata. Open stomata. Guard cells swollen. Chloroplast. Vacuole. Cell wall. Stoma. Nucleus. Inner cell well. Closed stomata. Guard cell shrunken. Respiration in roots. The roots of a plant are under the ground, but root cells also need oxygen to carry out respiration and release energy for their own use. The roots obtain oxygen for breathing and respiration from the soil as follows. Air is present in between the particles of soil. The roots of a plant take up air from the spaces between the soil particles. Actually, the roots of a plant have a very large number of tiny hair on them which are called root hair. The root hair are in contact with the air in the soil particles. Oxygen from air in soil particles diffuses into root hair and reaches all the cells of the root where it is utilized in respiration. Carbon dioxide produced in the cells of the root during respiration goes out through the same root hair by the process of diffusion. Thus, the respiration in roots occurs by the exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, through the root hair. If a potted plant is overwatered for a long time, then the plant may ultimately die. This is because too much water expels all the air from in between the soil particles. Due to this, oxygen is not available to the roots for aerobic respiration. Under these conditions, the roots of plant respire anaerobically, producing alcohol. This may kill the plant. Note that plants carry out photosynthesis for making food only during the daytime when sunlight is available. On the other hand, plants carry out respiration to obtain energy during the daytime as well as at night, because they require energy all the time. Roots absorb oxygen from air present in between the soil particles through the root hair. Root. Ground level. Soil particles. Air spaces. Root hair. Activity 7.4. To show that heat is released during respiration. Take some bean seeds and soak them in water overnight and keep them moist till they start germinating. Take some of these germinated seed and kill them by boiling. Keep the germinating seed in one thermos flask, A, and boil seed in another flask, B. Insert a thermometer in each of flask and close the mouth with cotton. Note down the temperature of both thermometers. You will find that the A flask thermometer reading is higher than B flask thermometer. It is because flask A respiration process produces heat, whereas at flask B respiration process does not take place. A. Germinating seeds. Boiled seeds. B. Germinating seeds. Boiled seeds. Q keywords. Respiration. The process of releasing energy from food is called respiration. Aerobic respiration. Respiration in presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration. Respiration in absence of oxygen. Breathing. It is a physical process of exchange of gases taking place through respiratory system. Cellular respiration or internal respiration. Breaking of glucose inside the cell is called cellular respiration. Glycolysis. Breaking of glucose into pyruvic acid is called glycolysis. Krebs cycle. Breaking of pyruvic acid into CO2 and H2O or alcohol or lactic acid with energy is called Krebs cycle. Stomata. They are openings on underside of a leaf where gaseous exchange takes place. Summary. All living organisms required energy for their physical and biological activity. The process of releasing energy from food is called respiration. The respiration process which takes place in presence of oxygen is called aerobic respiration. The respiration process which takes place in absence of oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. Breathing is a physical process in which exchange of gases takes place by respiratory system or parts. Cellular respiration is a process which takes place in the take by breaking of glucose and liberation of energy and CO2. Combustion is burning of substance at its ignition temperature. Breaking of glucose into pyruvic acid is called glycolysis. The liberation of energy and carbon dioxide from pyruvic acid is called Krebs cycle. In human, respiration takes place in two stages, breathing and cellular respiration. Nasal cavity, larynx, trachea, bronchi and lungs are the major parts of lungs. The process of taking of air into the lungs is called inhalation. The process of throwing of air from lungs to outside is called exhalation. Blood carries the oxygen from lungs to each part of body. In plants, exchange of gases take place by stomata. Opening and closing of stomata is controlled by guard cells.